what is the biggest challenge in working with teams?
One person hears it and another person hears it differently.
Mm.
So one way to do this that has been very, very effective is instead of telling anything, you begin to ask. So help me understand what you just heard.
Wow.
Then when they feed it back, you got, oh, wow, that was not it. Sometimes people are just moving right through, and let's stop for a second. Do you understand what the goal is?
Hello. Welcome to another amazing episode of Lead to Greatness, where we believe in helping others reach their greatest potential, and together we can change the world. And don't forget to subscribe to Lead to Greatness if this is your first time. Today on Lead to Greatness, we have Shawna Schuh. Shawna helps leaders evolve into their highest potential. With over 3 decades of working with remarkable leaders, Shawna uses her expertise in leadership, in business ownership, and life with animals to cut to the essence of how someone can shift their thinking for better and better results. Please help me welcome Shawna with Developmental Leadership. This is Cedric Francis, and you're listening to Lead to Greatness.
I live in rural Western Oregon, and so I live on a 20-acre, I call it a ranchette. People say, well, is it a farm? And the only thing we grow is a lot of blackberry weeds. And so I have a horse boarding facility, and I also have an Airbnb, and then I have another business where I do executive coaching and I do professional speaking. So I'm kind of busy. The thing that I bring to the party is that I use animal analogies so often, and we've become a nation, a world intrigued with other species. We're living with them. We're putting dogs and cats in our beds and birds and other kinds of furry things and scaly things. And there are so many lessons that they can teach us to be better leaders and really better humans. I do an exercise with my clients a lot of times where I ask them to write down the top traits that they find in a leader. And I'll say, think about, the greatest leader that you know. And then we start putting things on the board. And it's so amazing how different everybody's vision of a leader really is. So one time I wanted to make sure that I had some other third-party endorsement stuff. So I went and I looked up Forbes and I looked up Fast Company, and they had done 10 traits of a leader and the 15 traits of a leader and the 5 traits of a leader. Right. And what was so amazing to me is none of them matched except for one. And the one that matched across the board was empathy.
Wow.
Also, one of the things that was interesting is when I asked leaders to write down what they thought the traits were, they had certain things like visionary and, dreamer and delegator and communicator. And then when you ask people who are being led to write it down, they were like listener, empathetic, compassionate. And so one word that came across most of the list that I looked up was empathy. That empathy, which is really having feelings for what other people are going through. And I think that's why I think all leaders, this is my stance in the world, I think all leaders should have a pet, that they care for themselves. A lot of the leaders that I coach and work with, people will come to them to give them the problems. They'll go, I'm going to tell you that this is what's wrong in the department. And the leader, unfortunately, will say, thank you so much for telling me. But they just stole all the power from the person who just told them, because the person feels like the leader is supposed to fix things. And in the world, one of the powers we have is to fix things ourselves. So a leader would be way more effective if they said, what are you going to do about it? What do you believe is the solution? Because that's where the perspective shifts. I'm being led, so it's their responsibility to take care of things, and it's all of our responsibility. If we do not step up to change the work environment, the world that we live in, then we're giving all of our power away to a leader or a non-leader. But the point is, we have that power.
You started off and you talked about the things that we can learn from an animal. Let's talk about some of the things, some of the qualities, some of the traits that we can learn from animals.
Animals are not expecting somebody else to do anything for them. I mean, obviously my dog expects to get food, but they just know it's going to happen. And if they didn't, they would go out and find food. And also the biggest thing is that animals don't hold grudges. Now, animals remember if somebody wasn't nice to them, but they don't hold a grudge. They just let it go. It's humans that hold grudges. And then animals don't worry about stuff. And humans worry about everything. Like I laugh, one of my TEDx talks is all about that, because animals don't have a weather channel, right? They go outside or they're outside and they're like, oh, it's raining or it's sunshine. They just deal with life. And we, oh my gosh, it's going to snow right out here where I'm at. And everybody has to, they're all upset about what's coming instead of living right in the moment. Leaders do this too. They anticipate problems, or we're always planning. And in reality, if you just take it for what it is, you will be so much more effective and happier.
Wow. Wow. Do you think all this info has a lot to do with that? I mean, it's information everywhere. I mean, what's your thought on that?
Oh, it's such a good question. What we put in our mind greatly impacts who we are as a human. And so guarding our mind is probably one of the things most people don't do well. I haven't watched television for such a long time. I get internet, of course, because of how I work. So I get to pick the stories that I want to look at. I get to pick if I want to go down a rabbit hole on some sort of interesting topic instead of having it fed to me. And my friends all laugh and they go, what do you mean you don't know this celebrity? And I go, why would I? Why would I know this celebrity? It doesn't value my life at all.
Yes.
So I have a tendency to be very, very guarded with what I put in my mind. And consequently, I'm super happy.
That is amazing. I want you to do this. Talk about what do you do to get yourself away from all this clutter, all this unnecessary noise, that negativity, all these things that gets us in the world of trouble and it mess with our spirit. What are some things that you do, and what's some things that we can do as a community?
I love the expression mess with our spirit. That was really great, Cedric. If you don't want your spirit messed with, the first thing would be make some life rules for yourself. If you actually look at the greatest thinkers of all time, from Benjamin Franklin to Earl Nightingale, they guarded their minds. And so what is a life rule you've got? It could be that all screens get turned off at a certain time. What would you do if you weren't on a screen? What would you talk to your spouse, your lover, your children? So these are the rules that you make for yourself. So instead of somebody telling you this is what you should or shouldn't do, it's like, what life do you want? And I want a life filled with joy and harmony and richness. And so if I want that, then I will close my mind. And then inside screens, we have a choice. So like, I don't get cable or any of those. So when I get internet, I get to pick what I will look at, what I won't look at. Now, let's face it, some things are just wonderfully pleasurable to do. TikTok is a addictive medium. I've traveled down the rabbit hole of TikTok. It's not like I'm out there going, I don't know what's going on. And you put a rule in. I will watch this for 15 minutes. Set yourself a timer. Bingo. And then it goes off. Or I will do this work that I want to do, reading, creating, serving, contributing. And then I will get up and I will go watch something. It's a then little gift to yourself, and you've put the rule in of the structure.
Wow. Wow, Shawna, this is a load of knowledge bombs. We're at the beginning of the year, and basically setting rules up in your life and setting a timer. I mean, this is very awesome. There's some things that we can definitely put in place. So, I mean, one of the great things, I mean, you mentioned that you're a leadership coach.
Yes.
Let's talk about the coaching. What inspired you to begin that journey, and why?
What a good question too. I don't know if I was inspired to do it. I think that we're traversing through our lives, and we're picking up all of this wonderful experience. And sometimes they're not that wonderful, the stuff that happens to you and slams you sideways, whatever it might be. And you begin to get a thought process. Now, here's the challenge. Some people don't think at all. Leaders, the most important thing we can do as leaders is be thinkers, because if we're not, we're really not contributing anything to the world. So you're going along and you're learning new things, or you're learning some skills, and then suddenly you share them with someone. Like as a presenter, or I'm at a networking event and I'm listening to someone and they will say something and I will suggest something, ask them a question, and they will go, I want more of that. So I figured out that my thought process was helping people. Like when I could challenge a leader for their thinking, for their habits, for what their limiting beliefs, I really dig into limiting beliefs, then there was result. So as soon as I started getting result, then people would want to work with me again, or they would want to work with me or bring me into their team. So I guess I didn't pick it. it sort of evolved based on the journey I was on of self-discovery and philosophy. And like you mentioned, Zig Ziglar, what was one of his expressions? You can get anything you want in life if you help others get what they want in life.
Yes, yes.
And so that's what I'm doing. I'm helping my leaders get what they want in life. And so I'm getting what I want in life. And boy, there's nothing better than the light that turns on in their eyes, or when I challenge them and they go and they come up with it themselves.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, you're right. I need a life rule. Yeah. And then we work through it. We make a life rule. They put it into practice. It works. And we're like, it's great.
Right. I love this because there's a lot of leaders out here, right? It's a lot of leaders leading all types of organizations. And some people are leading alone. Some people don't have a coach. They don't have a mentor, so since we are talking about leadership coaching, I want you to talk to that leader or that individual that may be doing this by themselves. And I want you to explain to them why they should consider getting a leadership coach.
I think you already explained it really well. They are out there by themselves. And if they have a brain, which they do, a lot of the leaders I work with were put in that position without any training, right? They're like, you're really good at what you do. Let's make you the manager of the group,
Absolutely.
And then here's the challenge or dilemma is they can't go to the people who raised them up, because if they ask them for help, the person could worry. They don't ask the people who are they're leading, because then they could lose confidence. They don't ask other people that are their peers, because they don't want to lose credibility there. And when they ask their family goes, oh, you're so smart, you'll figure it out. So they're dangling there. Yeah. And that's why from a very early age, Jim Rohn, the business philosopher, is also someone I would recommend. He said, if you want to make a living, invest in your work. But if you want to make a fortune, invest in yourself. And I started reading the best books. And then you start there. That's what I would do for somebody alone. And then you start investigating somebody that you dig the way they could help you. If you're not investing in coaching, I've invested in coaching. Right now, I'm taking this 6-month program on the subconscious. I would look at it and say, when I invest in my own growth, it pays so many dividends. The investment, and this is the difference, there's no cost to it. Absolutely. I'm investing in me. And then I turn around and I help my clients, which makes me more and more valuable. And then next thing you know, I get more clients. It's this beautiful way of thinking.
Yes.
So if they're by themselves, they haven't reached that yet. If they're not investing in themselves, they're making a mistake.
Yes. Listen, lead to greatness. Find your coach, find your mentor, find someone that can help you on this journey. That's something. I mean, you even look at sports. I mean, some of the greatest athletes ever that they would call the GOATs, the greatest of all time, they had coaches. Coaches. So, I mean, that shows you how coaching is very important. I love something. I was looking at your website, and you had on your website, it says, imagine a world where you communicate so clear, you retain high talent, save time, and get more done. What does that look like?
Well, many of my clients are experiencing it to one level or another. So it greatly depends on, number one, what your intent is. But think about that. Imagine a world where you communicate so clearly. Here's the challenge. I think it was Bernard Shaw that said the challenge with communication is the illusion it's been achieved. Okay. So think about that for a minute.
Oh, man.
You think they heard you.
Yes.
And I have leaders say to me all the time, I told them, I know I told them. But see, you didn't communicate with them. You just told them. That doesn't mean they got it. And I think that's what it looks like. It looks like you shifting from telling, selling, from you at people all the time to this exchange, to you understanding that you're not going for telling, you're going for understanding. Different intent completely.
Oh, man. In the communication, we're dealing with people, and we have to get this communication out and get it out correctly, because I was doing the exercise, and on the exercise, it was like, you tell someone something and you go down this list of like 20 people, and you start off with the first person. By the time you get to Number three, the story already beginning to change. And by the time you get to the 20th person, I mean, the story is so far from the original. So this communication is very important and very important. What is the biggest challenge in working with teams?
You just said it. It's that game of telephone where one person hears it and another person hears it differently.
Mm.
So one way to do this that has been very, very effective is instead of telling anything, you begin to ask.
Mm.
So help me understand what you just heard.
Wow.
Then when they feed it back, you got, oh, wow, that was not it. Because what you're doing is you're telling and then you're telling again, and then you're telling this one and telling that one. Instead, ask, do you understand what the goal is?
Mm.
Sometimes people are just moving right through, and let's stop for a second. What's the goal? What's the goal with this task? What's the goal with this mission? What's the goal? And nobody talks about that. It's beautiful. It's like a meeting. Leaders will say, well, I've got this meeting and we're going to check in and I'm going to deliver all this information. And I'll say, oh, well, what's the goal of the meeting? And there's this huge silence. Well, I just told you, we're going to check in and we're going to share some information. No. When they're done with this meeting, what do you want them to walk away with? Now, suddenly the whole meeting shifts. So I have to be clearer. I have to ask questions. I have to say, are we all in agreement? And then instead of just letting people nod and scurry on their way, we stop and say, what did you hear? What will you agree to? Suddenly, everything raises, the whole element goes up, up, up. Now results are happening.
I love this. Basically, you just said start with the end in mind. Start with the end in mind. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love this question. What did you hear? What did you hear? This is so important. And I want you to dig into this question a little bit. Why is this question so important?
You're going to find out when you ask that question, either what did you hear me just say, or feed back to me what you believe this means. You're going to hear where your problems are, where the holes were in how you explained it. So you might say, I'd like everybody to be on board with this. I want all of us to be thinking about this. You're being really clear. And then you say, help me understand what you just heard. And they go, well, we got to learn new software. And suddenly you went, wow, I didn't mean that at all. And so you get that they have something else on their mind than what you had on your mind. So the question is so powerful to understand if indeed your communication landed.
A question like this, how does this question benefit you as the communicator?
Oh, because I can alter my communication easily. If I say, this is the direction we're headed, and everybody nods, and I go, so feed back to me what just happened, or tell me what you just heard. Well, I think we're going to do this. And I go, thank you. And I can stop and say, I think I could say it differently. I think the direction, even though, yes, you heard that correctly. And I also think we missed something that's imperative. And I get to be clearer. Imagine that kind of clarity where I get to be clearer and clearer on what the direction is.
That's instant feedback. I mean, that's nothing more amazing than having instant feedback on communication.
What your intent is. Let's go back there. Okay, Cedric, that is way more important than, like, if I'm not happy with the result and I come in and say, what were you thinking? They're already going to be defensive. Now I ask a question.
Now
they're going to be defensive. Now or I'm going to say, why did you make that choice? Even if I'm really happy, really nice, tell me why you made that choice. Well, guess what? Now I'm going to get all excuses. The quality of our questions has to do with the intent behind them. So do I really want to make them wrong? That's ineffective. So if I say, a question I'm going to ask myself first, how do I ask in such a way that helps me understand their either dilemma or their belief? Okay. So I'm going to say, if you wouldn't mind, soften it. Would you walk me through your thought process in this? Okay. That's softer than tell me why you did this. I'm going to justify because I already know I'm in trouble. Walk me through so I'm with you, your thought process, or break down the steps for me so I know what we're doing together. And suddenly people are excited. Or here's the other thing. Teach me. It looks like you got this result. Teach me how you did that. And wow, people love to teach. Matter of fact, a short story. There was a woman that I mentored under. She was older than me and better than me in every way. We worked together. And I never gave up. She tells me that I was the best partner she ever had because I just was on her heels all the time. I was just biting at her heels all the time because she was amazing. Well, we're on our own thing. We're doing our own thing now. And she calls me every so often and she'll ask me a question. She'll say, so what's new? What have you learned lately? And I'll go, oh, wow. Well, I'm taking this class and she'll say, teach me. Oh, and I just pour out everything. I'm telling her all the different nuggets and all this.
Amazing.
And she'll say, wow. She asks a few more questions. And then later she'll say, were you reading any good books? And I'll go, oh, yeah. And then she'll say, teach me. Well, after we got off the phone one day, I realized how brilliant she was because number one, I felt terrific. I mean, I felt like I was heard and
the best friend.
Oh, yeah. And meanwhile, she learned everything that I paid for.
That's amazing.
She learned everything. Yeah, she got it all. And I thought that was a brilliant tactic. And it's all by saying, teach me. I mean, you're doing this too. You're asking great people questions just so that your listeners can get this juicy, good stuff that I spent years and years and years, and you spent years and years and years learning.
Absolutely.
It's a good deal. It's a good deal.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. By the way, so what are you learning?
What am I learning?
Yes.
I've been studying a couple of different things, but it's really the subconscious and how important it is for us to get control of our mind. And I feel that this is more and more important for leaders, especially my particular leaders, because I am there to uncover their limiting beliefs. My basis is in neuro-linguistic programming. And if none of your listeners know what that is, that it breaks down into the neurology, the way our brains fire. And now, more than ever in the history of the world, are we learning how the brain fires. But there's all these neural pathways. And when you learn something new, the neural pathways are building a new pathway. But if you don't do it over and over, the pathway breaks apart. So it's like when we go in and learn a new software program or we learn anything new and we don't do it again for a week or so, we're like, how do you turn this on? Or, I've missed some things. And it's not because you're getting older and it's not because you have too much on your mind. It's because the neural pathway did not get a chance to form. The second part of neuro-linguistic programming is language. And that's what I am as a coach, is a word watcher for my clients. So your language actually uncovers your limiting beliefs, what you say and how you say it. And also it can steal your power. And then thirdly is your programs. And we're all in programs. When we live in America, everyone's programmed to drive on the right side of the road. And you don't realize how ingrained that program is until you go to Europe. And you almost kill yourself. Right. And those are good programs. But many of us have programs that don't serve us. Like my mother gave me the program to eat everything on my plate. Even if I'm not hungry, there's starving children in Africa. You got to eat everything on your plate. Absolutely. And it's a program. Yeah. So I also, as a coach, am going in there to uncover the programs you're in that hurt you. And a lot of this has to do with the new lessons I'm learning around the subconscious, because what we say to ourselves builds it's our language, it's our beliefs, it's the neural pathways, and it's our programs. But we did that by what we said to ourselves. Isn't that craziness? It's crazy good.
That's amazing. That's amazing, because I've also seen this, and there's listeners right now who are stuck because of something that happened in their childhood, stuck because of some rejection that happened on a job, stuck because of some promotion they didn't get, stuck because somebody told them they were stupid, or someone told them they sucked as a leader. And this stuff is like embedded in them. I love what you're doing, because this is really this is going beyond, I believe everyone is a beautiful flower, right? But beyond that flower, when you begin to go under the ground, there's something maybe helping that flower grow. And that can also be some type of fungus that's on the verge of destroying the flower. And you mentioned the subconscious, and I believe that's really going deeper than that surface level. And you're really digging deep into really helping people figure out things that they're not even aware of. That's so awesome. You said the thing about the food, and this is something that I struggle with. I still have issues with it now at my house, in my kitchen. I don't believe in throwing away food. I mean, it's like this thing in my head. It's like I will
Yep.
mix. I did it just last night. I mean, I mixed breakfast, lunch, and dinner all up and created this concoction, like a mad scientist, and I ate it, and I mean, it's all embedded in something my
Yes.
mom taught me when I was a kid, saying starving
Yes.
kids in Africa, and I still remember this. And grown with kids, and I still, and this is embedded in my head, and I
Yes.
love it. I love what you said. Let's talk about this as we, begin to close. I want to talk about this with the subconscious. Let's talk about some things that leaders, what, better question, with the subconscious, what are some things that you've recently learned, and what are some things
Yes.
that can help leaders?
Wonderful. This will help all of us. And it's the law of substitution.
Mhm.
So the reality is we cannot think two things at once.
Mm.
It's impossible. So if you are thinking a negative thought, you will stay down that path unless you substitute it for a positive thought.
Wow.
So if I'm thinking a certain way, like somebody said something negative to me, they said I was stupid or whatever it is, and I'm thinking it, I can't think that and be grateful at the same time.
Mm.
Couldn't do it. So
Yeah.
I'd have to say, but I'm grateful for my health. And then suddenly I'm thinking about my health.
Yes.
People talk about multitasking like they can do it. And in reality, they're proving that they can't do it. You can do two things at once, but you're not doing either one of them very well. Like I can walk and listen to music, right? I can drive and listen to a show. But if I get engrossed in a show, I will miss my exit because I
Mm.
wasn't really driving. I was just on autopilot.
I love it.
So who Bruce Lee was that, famous martial artist. And he did not fight 7 people at once. He fought each one individually and rapidly refocused. So I like my clients to think of rapidly refocusing. So if you are thinking one thought, replace it rapidly with another thought. So when you feel yourself going down this road, you replace it. And what a gift. Remember the law of substitution. So if you're thinking negative, put in a positive thing. So, and most of the time, the best way is something you're grateful for because they're all around. They're all around. We have heat right now. That's immediately, I can think of hundreds of things that I'm grateful for right now. I'm to the fact that I get to be on this show with you. I'm so grateful for that. How could I be negative if I'm thinking only positive, only gratitude? So that's probably the key piece to leave your listeners with today.
Thank you. I really believe this last key, this information that you just shared right now, that can be the information that changed someone's life
Yes.
forever. Forever. I thank you so much. Oh my God. My God. That's knowledge bumps. I mean, this is so amazing. And definitely thank you for adding value to us all.
You're welcome. I dug it. I dig what I do.
Yes, I could tell. I could tell. I love it. I love it. What are some leadership growth tips, advice that you can share with the Lead to Greatness community to help us reach our greatest potential?
We've talked about a couple of them, so let's round them up. Number one, it would be making sure that you put in some life rules that worked for you. And if you don't have any life rules, now's the time to create them right here in the new year. The other thing is be very selective, or I watch what I let into my brain. I'm only putting good things in my brain. And that's that law of substitution. That would be the third one, although it works with this, that the minute I see negative news, and I talk to people all the time, and it's so interesting when I go, oh, it's been so this and so that. And I'll say, well, isn't there anything good about it?
No.
And they're so startled. Well, I don't, and I'm like, there's not a single good thing. Like you were home and you had heat. There's nothing good at all. Yeah. And that question. So there you go. A leader asks good questions. So there's right there a whole handful of goodies.
Oh man, this is so amazing. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Shawna. If someone wanted to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go?
They go to my website. My name is Shawna Schuh, and you'd think that'd be a little easier to spell, but it's Shawna with a W. It's SHAWNA. And then Schuh, it's pronounced like the one on your foot, but it's SCHUH. And on my website, I have like a quiz, and I think there's books, and I have tons of writing on there. And I've been in 2 TEDx talks, so they can watch that. And if they want to, I do a Monday mindset. I send out a lot of free information because I can, because I'm thinking new thoughts all the time. And I do a weekly blog that goes out, and then if they want to make a call with me, they can schedule. I give away a free half-hour clarity call just to help people. And people always ask me, are you kidding me? You give away it for free? And I said, yes, because two things. Number one, I can help somebody. Number two, it really keys me into what's going on in the world. And that's where you really realize that the same problems are happening with everyone. Like you were saying, we're driving along and we're not feeling good about ourselves, or we're feeling alone. And we don't have to do any of that. There is an answer everywhere. It's so exciting. We just don't know it yet. We just don't know the answer yet.
If someone's considering working with you, what can they expect?
It's a great question. They'll be challenged. But I have a tendency to absorb someone. So normally a coaching with me is 2 sessions with me over the phone, where I am focused totally on you and your limiting beliefs and what's happening and getting you to your goals. And I ask for people to commit to me for about 6 months, because that's when the juicy bits come out, right? Where we're first learning. The first session, you're going to learn something about the way you're speaking or the way you're thinking that will immediately produce benefit. But after it's cumulative, I have people who've coached with me for 8 years. I'm their secret weapon. So I find that's part of it. The other part is when people coach with me, they also get to be on a monthly goals call, and it is a forced reflection. So we're doing it actually next Monday. This I know is going to be in the new year. We do it at the last of the month or the beginning of the month. And basically we're all on a group call together, but I lead it, and you analyze the 4 elements in your life: your personal, your relational, your professional, and your lifestyle. And you build goals. And what's amazing is the first time you're like, oh, this is really good. It's the 3rd month where you go, I've been writing down this same thing and not doing anything about it. It becomes very, very powerful. And then the last thing that people that coach with me can, if they choose, I do a Monday through Friday accountability call, and it's Pacific time. So it's at 5:15 a.m. Pacific. So I have people on the East Coast, and it's 8:15 for them. But it really is powerful for those 5:15ers on the West Coast. And Monday, they tell me what they will be accountable for. Tuesday, we work on the theme. Wednesday, it's a win. Thursday, I have a guest coach. And Friday, I read off what you said you would do. And I'm going to tell you, if somebody's going to read off what you say you're going to do on Friday, you do it.
Absolutely. If you got to get it done Thursday night.
And I've had one woman, well, I have 2, but one started the very first year. What is this? I've been doing it 15 years now. And I have one woman who's been on it every single year. And she's at the top of her game. And why is she at the top of her game? Because every morning she has accountability, and because she's learning something every day.
On behalf of the Lead to Greatness community, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us all.
Well, you're very welcome. I had fun. You asked good questions. And to everyone listening, remember, what you fill your mind with is what you become. So pick wisely.
Thank you. And don't forget to subscribe to Lead to Greatness if this is your first time. And this podcast was helpful to you, leave a big thumbs up. And also, I want you to check out our Marriage Coach podcast, the podcast with my wife and I. If you're on iTunes, please rate this podcast and leave a review and help get the word out. Again, thank you, Lead to Greatness Nation, for joining us on today. Looking forward to seeing you again on next week. Till then, remember, if you help others reach their greatest potential, together we can change the world. Peace. We out.